Hey guys, welcome to Tour de Forge. I'm Chris. On the far right we have Sean with special guest Matt Parkinson from Dragon's Breath Forge, and he's going to be working with us on these guys. You may remember these. We started them well over a year ago now, and they've been making the rounds as we slowly progress with our knives. So Matt, what would be the next step that we're looking at in our knives?
So the next step on this is going to be to they've been heat treated, they've been shaped at least rough ground. So now we're going to finish off the grind on the blade, make sure the handles hang is flat and ready to accept the wood. And then we can start building the handles.
Perfect. Sounds good. Let's get started.
Let's go make some dust. First thing I'm doing is setting these height-wise. I actually overshot just a smidge. So I'll bring this one up and then I'll go back to the other side and work them back and forth until they're nice and even.
So, we
are done
with our knives. We finished them. It only took us almost 2 years.
Yeah, I mean,
we started in the summer of 2018.
Yeah, yep.
And you know, we spent a good day with Matt, you know, working on these knives, and there's a lot of processes that we had to go through still.
Yeah,
more so than I expected. It took longer than I was expecting.
It did. It took up. We were there 10 hours
easily.
We got a long day, and it was, you know, I was pushing it to finish mine up. So
yeah,
we
same
used
here.
up that time completely.
And special thanks to Matt Parkinson of Dragon's Breath Forge for spending the day with us and helping us finish these things. But when we started, I mean, we had a lot of work to do still. We had to finish flattening out the blades and making sure they were straight. And so this is like the instructor's knife here. You got my knife here. Sean, you got your knife there. So we had to take the blades, get them all prepped for the handles. And we had a couple issues where the handle areas weren't quite flat enough for the handle to fit up, and so we had to work all that. And he also wanted us to work on finishing the rough grinding for the blade itself, and getting that as close as we could to done beforehand. So, you know, it was a learning process, and you know, I'll say right now, sorry for the lack of footage, but when you get into these projects, you need somebody else there to film it, or else you can't film all that stuff.
And even if we set up a single camera pointing in one direction, we were all over the shop the whole time, so not much would have been captured anyhow. But let's go through what we did. So
yeah,
as you were saying, you know, we flattened them out. We got them grounded shape as much as we could.
Right.
Hit them with Scotch-Brite, and then drilled the holes for our pins. And
well, let's think. Wait, we had already had the holes drilled in the blades.
Yes, so
we had to cut the.
We got our handle scales cut to length. Then put one on. Would we attach it with super glue?
Yeah, super glue just to get like the fit up
situated. Pop the holes in them. Pop that scale off.
And what is it? Is spalted maple? Was we decided is what we ended up using?
Yeah, wood? Something like that. It's a little bit of quilting in there.
Yeah, Yeah. I mean, they look great. I think they came out great. So we glued them up, drilled the holes for the pins, cut the pins.
Yep. Cut the pins.
Made sure everything was lining up properly, and then we took the two scales and stuck them together.
Right.
And like you wanted to mention, we went and did the front of our scales first, which I didn't even know you had to do that. But he's like, well, Matt was telling us, you want to make sure you get that done first, or else you're going to be digging into that blade when you're
right. You're not going to be able to get to this area once it's attached to the knife. And so we had the scales put together. We had a couple pins put in, bent to hold them in place. And we took the two scales to the grinder, ground a shape into it. So I put a curve in mine. You ground it down to kind of narrow it in the front also. And, it's a great piece of advice. So it was ready to go. And then I think at that point, then we put the epoxy on them.
Yeah, we did the epoxy work, and that was our first time working with that epoxy, at least for me it was. It was an interesting process. I know Matt went through everything first. He was showing us how to do the epoxy properly and where to spread it, and we took the Johnson's paste wax and put that all over the spots that we didn't want the epoxy.
Right. So we put that basically all over the blade. So we didn't get epoxy on that, so we wouldn't have to try to just, deal with that where we didn't want it. So that was a good tip also.
Yep. I went that day, and I got home, I ordered paste wax.
Yeah.
I just got it in the other day, actually. Nice. So I'll know what to do when I'm working on some more handles and things moving forward. So we got it epoxied, and then once it was epoxied, did we go to lunch? Is that when we took our break?
Possibly.
I think it was around there. And then we spent pretty much from like 1:30, 2 o'clock-ish till we left, just shaping the handles and staining.
So a couple things. So, we shape it on whatever size grinding wheels fit. The contour is best.
Right.
So if you had a deeper contour, and I think he did, used a bigger wheel, I couldn't. So I'd use a smaller wheel to fit the curves. And then he also showed us that he likes to hand file, shape and get wood by filing, which was kind of a neat process also.
I will say I have a new appreciation for files.
Yeah.
I never thought about, I've used files in the past, but not for something like this before. And once we started getting into the weeds with how many different types of files there are and how they work differently and everything, it was interesting. And it made shaping the handles, at least like around the finger areas and stuff, a lot easier getting in there and smoothing it out.
Right. Because you can go to a grinder and then, you take off too much, you put a divot in there and you can't take it out. So using a file to get that kind of, fine-tuned, and then taking sandpaper to it. And you want to spend a decent amount of time doing that because there's going to be file marks left in at least these scales. So you want to take that out before you put a finish on it, because then the finish is really going to bring it out. And so for the most part, I got that taken care of, but just a couple of spots where I could see I had some file marks there.
Yeah, me too. I have a couple of spots. It kind of
just goes in with the dark grain of the wood anyway, so you can't, exactly pick it up. But for the most part, it came out just the way it needed to, and then we put a little bit of stain on it.
Yeah, we did the staining and let that sit for a few minutes and cleaned it up. And
I put a little wax on over that.
Oh, you did? I didn't do that on mine, is it? Oh, yeah, you can feel a little bit. The wax kind of helps with maybe sealing it up a little bit more. I screwed mine up at the end because I was going to hit. It was the final cleaning up of the blade. We were doing that after we put the handles on, before we did the sharpening. And I don't know what happened, but I managed to hit the corners of my handle pieces on both sides.
Yeah.
And the first time I did it, I didn't even notice it apparently. And then I saw it on the second side, and I pointed it out to Matt, and I'm like, "Oh shoot, I screwed it up." And he's looking at it, he goes, "Oh, you did it on both sides. Now it's a feature, not a mistake."
Right, there you go.
So it was interesting. I still don't know how it happened. All I know is I was working on the grinder. I thought I was being really careful not to get the handle anywhere near it. The next thing I know, it's the same spot on both sides got hit. So I must have been holding it a certain way that I just didn't realize it was contacting. And that was really it. And then we did the final sharpening. We did the sharpening on the stone.
Yep.
I was not grasping the proper technique for that. I just couldn't get it the right angle.
Yeah. That definitely takes some practice.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't really getting it either, and it's easy just to not have it at the right angle.
He's like, "Oh, you just got to hold it like a matchbook is underneath it." I'm like, "Okay," and I'm slicing, and I'm trying. No, you got to do that. And it was like multiple times. I'm like, you know what? This is all I can do. And then stupid me is like doing that, clean it off. Just see how
that's
like.
right.
And I sliced right into my thumb.
That's right.
And I was like, "Oh shit!" And I wrapped my finger up pretty quickly. It didn't bleed too bad, but it was like, well, that's my own fault. That was pretty stupid. But then that was it. We sharpened the blades and we were done for the day. Now, what else can we do on these? Well, we can make sheaths for them. We have materials to make sheaths for them.
Yeah.
We don't know how to do that yet, but we're going to try to teach ourselves, I think. So that'll be cool. Are there any big takeaways from the whole process? We worked on these things starting with Theo Nazz back in New York, and then we worked with, who was next after that? Ryan Breuer. So Theo, we did the points.
Yep.
Ryan, we did the shaping of the handle and the blade.
We did, yes.
And the bevels, that hammering in the bevels. Mm-hmm. With Peter, did we go to Matt first or Peter first? We did Matt first, and that was our first experience with grinding knives with Matt Berry, and we ground in our profiles and worked on the beginning of our blade grinding and everything else. Then we went to work with Peter Swarz-Burt, and we cleaned up the blades quite a bit and heat treated them with him. That was one of the big things we did. We spent time to heat treat, and then we finished everything off with Matt Parkinson. So it was an interesting process. I took the one knife making class with Peter, and so I've been learning a lot about knife making over the last year and a half because of this, because I've gotten so drawn into it and wanted to build this workshop and actually make knives.
Right.
So it was a good first project, I think. It was a
lot of work.
It was a lot.
It takes I'd say a lot of skill to make a good knife.
Skill, patience.
Yeah.
Far more goes into it than I realized. We'll say that, because I sure like Forged and Fire, which a common complaint about Forged and Fire is the fact that this isn't a craftsman show. This is a how fast can you make a knife show. So you think, it's only going to take a day. But really, the amount of time we put into these things, and never mind the fact that it took us so long to schedule it, it takes a long time. And, as we get better, the process will go quicker. But it was an eye-opener for me on just how much goes into making one knife. That's a quality, like this knife I'd be comfortable using, and I feel like it's in good shape. If you remember, I accidentally water quenched this thing.
That's right.
And luckily, because it must have been the 80 CRV, just was a forgiving enough material that it just didn't get cracked.
Yeah.
So I lucked out with that. But again, I learned a lot from this one build, and having those teachers there to show us, it was different than when I took the class with Peter, because that's more about forging the blade shape. And then the handle that we put on those knives were just wraps.
Right.
So we took it a step further doing these types of handles. And it was funny because Matt even said, well, I don't even do these types of knives.
That's right. He doesn't do full tang.
He doesn't do full tang knives. So he was like, I'll have to think about this for a second. And then he, was able to guide us in it. But I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I'm happy with how it came out. I have very obvious flaws. Never mind this. Like, I didn't get a good cleanup job done where the epoxy was. I could probably have gotten that a little cleaner. I didn't, for whatever reason, I don't know why it's black on the spine of my knife. I thought I had cleaned it up because we did all this profiling. I don't know why it's still like that, but I could feasibly clean that up on my own grinder if I wanted to, do a little bit of a just light touch with it. But I don't know if I'm going to. I think that I'm going to call this one done. And this is one of those things where it's an example of, what not to do for certain things, Yeah. It's first knife, it's first knife that we started, but it's not going to be 100% perfect Jason knife, Master Smith knife here.
No. And I'm all right with that.
Me,
It came out. I never would have thought that I could just turn
steel
into this blade.
Right.
So I'm happy with this. And I'll have that forever. It's not going anywhere.
Absolutely. I will never get rid of this one. This is going to be one of those ones that maybe I'll use it, but maybe I'll just keep it around just to have.
Well, if I go camping and I got a sheath, I can put this on a belt.
Oh yeah, and that'd be great.
Tote that thing around.
That would be really great. And so that's it. I mean, that's it for our first Tour de Forge season. That's it for our first knife build. I don't know what we're going to do, if we're going to try to follow it up and do something else different for a second season. That's something we'll have to kick around for a while because it kind of took a long time to get it back on track with this. But there is something we also have to figure out is, what are we going to do with this bad boy?
I don't know.
The instructor's knife, because we had Peter and Matt Parkinson, Matt Barry, like Ryan Breuer and Theo all worked on these too. I mean, that's 5 great smiths. But I mean, Matt Parkinson's going to be testing for Master Smith soon. A Master Smith knife goes for thousands of dollars. And Peter, he's selling his stuff that he makes for, a good chunk of money because he's been doing it for years and years, and he's very talented. And Matt Barry, you've seen the friggin' swords and in-depth creations that he makes. I mean, and Theo, all of them. Even Ryan Breuer just posted this trench knife that he made, this real badass trench knife that he put together. It's like, what do you do with this thing? Like, we're not going to sell this. This is something that's going to either stick around as a memento for the show. The only other thing I could think of doing, which I would be okay with, would be auctioning it off to donate to like a charity. Because otherwise, I mean, what else are we going to, like, I kind of feel selfish wanting to keep it, as a memento.
Just hang it up.
We could hang it up as a prop. Maybe someday we'll discuss the idea of auctioning it off to somebody that might want a knife that was worked on by those 5 guys. I mean, I'm sure there's people that would buy that. Absolutely sure that people would want to buy this. This is sick. Like,
those scales I love those scales too.
They came out great. It's so cool. The shape of this blade came out awesome. I mean, everything about this is really cool. The only thing is, there's no identification on it. And so it's tough. I mean, how do you handle that? But we have video proof of guys working on this, so we can at least say, hey, you can see the video to see who put this together. But anywho, that's that. Those are our knives, and that was it. That's Tour de Forge Season 1. So
Hope you liked it.
Yeah, I hope so too. We enjoyed the process. Thanks everybody who's watched it and followed along with this particular build and stuck around with us since we started doing this. This was, I mean, back in the day, that was when we only had a couple hundred subscribers at most. Now we're almost at 2,000, so it's a little different.
We were in the game for only a few months at that point.
Yeah.
So
it's been an interesting journey to this point. We'll just leave it at that. So thanks again, everybody, and we'll catch you in the next one.
See ya.